Okay, let's just continue this. So you state, I think, so once again, this is like an extremely weird letter to me because additionally, they're like, your desire to falsely paint Ethan as supporting genocide in Gaza is emphasized by the end of the first defamatory video, where you state this, saying that other people should get involved in targeting Ethan Klein doesn't automatically imply that Noah is falsely painting Ethan as supporting genocide. That doesn't imply anything where he's like, I'm lying about this and you guys could lie about it too. Okay, let's continue. So now they're going to actually like break into this. First, a defamation video at 1 hour 36 to 156. Okay, we're going to have to listen to this. 1 hour 36 to 56. Is it going to be interesting?
Is a great use of time, I think. And Bad Empanada has done a fantastic job with that. His videos have reached pretty wide audiences and exposed them to the reality and history of the Zionist project. That's a really good thing. That's a really important thing that he's doing. And I think many of you can probably also help out with that.
Oh, okay. So they're just talking about the anti-Ethan Klein industrial clips complex. This statement demonstrates that you intended to not just have third parties spread defamatory statements about Ethan, but profit from those defamatory statements. You proved this point yourself when your video entitled Manufacturing Consent Genocide failed to receive many views. Particularly in comparison to the first defamatory video, you made a second defamatory video to further profit from your defamatory statements about Ethan. Once again, this is completely ridiculous. Like, what courtroom would be like, oh yeah, he got more views when he talked about Ethan Klein, and he's like, other people can also talk about Ethan Klein? That proves that he was knowingly lying to purposely defame Ethan. I mean, is it defamatory if your statements about the person are true? So that's like completely insane. The second defamatory statement and the fifth defamatory statement. So now they're going to like break into these statements and explain why and how they're defamatory. For the second defamatory statement, and the second is that Ethan spreads pro-Israel propaganda, which is hilarious. It just brings me back to when Hassan covered a clip of Ethan and he's like, Ethan's giving pro-Israel propaganda, saying that there is no apartheid in Israel. And then Ethan sees Hassan covering him and he's like, Hassan says, oh, what's next? Is Ethan going to say that there's a Palestinian Supreme Court justice in Israel? So then that's another pro-Israeli talking point that I've heard a lot. And Ethan's like, why are you putting words in my mouth? I never said that, Hassan. I never said that. You're just trying to paint me like this some kind of like crazy pro-Israeli propagandist. And then 6 months later, he does that exact same thing. He's like, there's no apartheid in Israel. There's actually like a Supreme Court justice that's Palestinian. Okay, so that's funny. Like, he's literally spreading pro-Israeli propaganda that he himself acknowledged was a pro-Israeli propaganda talking point. The second defamatory statement and the fifth defamatory statement. So you did not disclose the factual basis for how Ethan engaged in every type of manufactured consent with one exception, your false assertion that Ethan spread the Hamas mass hoax, which you expanded upon with the fifth defamatory statement, the false assertion that Ethan misrepresented the United Nations report from the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence in the conflict. So then they say the mass on October 7th were not a hoax. In your first defamatory video, you cite paragraphs 84 and 86 from the UN report. First defamatory video at 44:31. From the language you displayed in the defamatory video, it makes it clear that there were mass on October 7th. So I guess they're saying from the language you displayed in the first defamatory video is the paragraph of the report that Noah threw up there. Because Noah never actually said this. He just like wrote it down. Overall, based on the totality of information gathered, we already read this, credible circumstantial evidence which may be indicative of some forms of sexual violence, including blah, 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 was also gathered. So they're including the forms of sexual violence, They're including the forms of sexual violence that the circumstantial evidence they saw could include. UN report emphasis added also, see also ID, with regards to the hostages, the mission team found clear and convincing information that some hostages taken to Gaza have been subjected to various forms of conflict-related violence and has reasonable grounds to believe that such violence is ongoing. Emphasis added. Paragraph 86 of the UN report does not support the assertion that Hamas did not engage in mass rapes on October 7th. Okay. As the plain language of paragraph 86 states, the investigators could not determine the exact scope of the sexual violence because it would require a separate, more comprehensive investigation, not because there was no evidence. Once again, this is really weird to me. So the fifth defamatory statement is that Ethan misrepresented what the UN report said, specifically in the context of mass rapes happening on October 7th. And they're trying to say, oh, well, there is clear and convincing information that some hostages experienced sexual violence in Gaza, like underneath Hamas's control. It's like, okay, that literally has nothing to do with the claim that Ethan is misrepresenting mass on October 7th. At the end of the day, this UN report literally just says that circumstantial information could be indicative of sexual violence. That's all they're saying. And so if you're making the claim that the UN report is making it abundantly clear that mass rape happened, you are lying. Like, you're misrepresenting this study. And so what do? They're like, okay, well, this paragraph says that circumstantial evidence was found which could be indicative of some forms of sexual violence. Then they cite a paragraph that says hostages experienced sexual violence. Okay, paragraph 86 of the UN report does not support the assertion. And then they say that the assertion, then they're like, okay, well, I know you said that our client misrepresented this study by saying it proved mass rapes happened, but it actually didn't prove that mass rapes didn't happen. So checkmate, Noah Samsen. This is like when you have an atheist arguing with a religious person, and the atheist is like, okay, well, can you prove to me that God exists? And the religious person is like, well, I can't, but you can't prove to me that God doesn't exist. So checkmate, we're at an impasse. So what are you saying? They're like, yeah, I know Ethan is making the assertion that this study like definitively says that mass rapes happened, but it never said that no mass rapes happened. Okay, so, yeah. Okay, so what's your point? So far, like, you're not disproving Noah at all. Additionally, immediately after the second defamatory statement, which was Ethan spreads pro-Israeli propaganda, you cite materials that you claim support your assertion that the same hoax that was used by the Western media, the U.S. government, and the Israeli government to justify genocide. The materials you cited, however, only discuss conflict-related sexual violence in general, and not just October 7th, and did not discuss Israel's actions in Gaza whatsoever. Wait, I'm actually like kind of confused by this. Additionally, immediately after the second defamatory statement, you cite materials that you claim. All right, we're gonna have to like listen to Noah Samsen. So what timestamp was the second defamatory statement at? 43:15. Let's just check it out. We're just gonna have to like play this.
These lies in front of Congress. He received a standing ovation. 3 weeks later, the White House approved a $20 billion military aid package to Israel. They explicitly cited Netanyahu's visit as one of their motivations for doing so. Atrocity propaganda has consequences. So with that context out of the way about the Gaza genocide and its support from the West and within Israel, the broader media system that allowed it to happen, let's now return to Ethan's video. In the content nuke, you can find just about every type of what we just looked at in terms of manufacturing consent. Ethan spreads atrocity propaganda. He shares the Hamas mass hoax, the same hoax that was used by the Western media, the US government, and the Israeli government to justify a genocide. He cites the same sources that these.
Okay, so he cites the same sources. The vice president hosted an event at the White House, which included a panel discussion and remarks by advocates and survivors of CRSV from around the world, and a partial screening of Sheryl Sandberg's documentary Screams Before Silence on Hamas's sexual violence on October 7th. Okay, so this Screams Before Silence, that's a documentary about October 7th, right? So wouldn't that disprove the idea? Screams Before Silence is a film led by American businesswoman Sheryl Sandberg that explores violence by Hamas during the Hamas-led attack on Israel on October 7th. So this is quite literally about the sexual violence on October 7th, okay? And they're saying that he didn't include anything about October 7th? You cite materials that you claim support your assertion that the same hoax that was used by the Western media, the US government, and the Israeli government to justify genocide. The materials you cited, however, only discuss conflict-related sexual violence in general, and not just October 7th, and did not discuss Israel's actions in Gaza whatsoever. Oh, so they're saying that Noah Samsen is claiming that Israel is using sexual violence, like the mass rapes hoax, to justify their genocide. But because even though Noah is citing like the White House talking about the mass rapes hoax, he's not directly relating it to the genocide, and thus it's defamatory. I would say that's a reach. Like if you're saying that the White House is hosting an event literally discussing the mass rapes on October 7th, that is evidence that they're manufacturing consent for this. Which, like, Noah very clearly lays out his definition for manufacturing consent, and then he goes on to describe how Ethan Klein and the United States government and Israel manufacture consent, and that seems to be like a pretty like watertight use of this video. Like, he's defining how people support a genocide, he's defining the ways in which is supported, and then he's going on to list examples of how Ethan Klein and other like propagandist parties are fitting into that definition of supporting the genocide that he laid out there. So they're going to have to prove that that definition that Noah used, Noah Samsen doesn't believe in it. They're not going to have to prove that that definition is incorrect, because Noah Samsen can just say, I genuinely believe that that definition is backing a genocide, therefore I'm not like knowingly defaming you, because in my definition of manufacturing consent, you fit into that definition. But like this letter is very strange. So they're saying that since he didn't directly relate the fact that the White House is repeating this mass hoax to genocidating people in Gaza, then it's defamatory. Did I get that right? By misrepresenting the factual basis of the second defamatory statement, particularly after reviewing the UN report yourself, you knew the second defamatory statement was false. That's just not true whatsoever. Like, this is completely insane. So the second defamatory statement, I'm just gonna like cross through, because we read this and yeah, they really have like no standing whatsoever. Beautiful. Ethan spreads pro-Israel propaganda. Proven correct, or at least not disproven. Third defamatory statement. Despite which is Ethan spreads misinformation about Houthis and Hezbollah through repeating Saudi propaganda and citing a documentary that was not about the Houthis at all. Despite making the factual assertion that Ethan spread overt misinformation and straight up lies about Hezbollah, you do not identify a single piece of misinformation or falsehood Ethan made about the organization. Indeed, you do not address, let alone refute, the assertions made in the nuke that 1. Hezbollah engaged in terrorism resulting in the deaths of thousands of civilians. 2. Hezbollah orchestrated the assassination of Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri. 3. Hezbollah hijacked airplanes. 4. Hezbollah fired 15,000 rockets in civilian areas. 5. Hezbollah intervened in the Syrian civil war to aid the dictator Bashar al-Assad in Nasrallah, which resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians. 6. Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah made numerous anti-Semitic and genocidal statements against Jews. 7. Hezbollah initiated the most recent round of fighting on October 8th, not Israel. Oh my God. Which resulted in 100 Israelis killed and over 200,000 displaced. The nuke at 55:44. All right. Like, Ethan literally implied that Noah Samsen was a racist. Or like, maybe Dan implied it. All right, let's just watch this. Content nuke Hassan Piker. Content nuke Hassan Piker. What timestamp was this? They said
completely flattened.
They said it was 55:44 to 101. So anyway, Noah cites, what does he cite? He cites a video by Bad Empanada, I think. So we're on the third defamatory statement. 4356. Let's just jump there.
Information, just straight up lies about Hezbollah and Ansar Allah, or the Houthis, in order to delegitimize their struggle against Israel's genocide. He cites baseless claims from Saudi state propaganda outlets to attack the Houthis. He also cites a documentary about Ansar Allah, which he uses as proof of the claim that they brought back slavery, when the documentary wasn't even about the Houthis. It was about the Yemeni government before the Houthi takeover. He spreads long debunked Nakba denialist talking points
Okay, so he includes two things. Was this from the content nuke? So there's a slavery in Yemen documentary. Slavery in Yemen doc. And it was this other article.
Ansar Allah, or the Houthis, in order to delegitimize their struggle against Israel's genocide. He cites baseless claims.
Exclusive: Houthis restore slavery in Yemen by Ashar al-Aswad. Houthis restore slavery in Yemen. Okay, so is he saying he did this like during the content nuke? And the content nuke portion that they're clipping was in 55:44?
More and more people in a way more consumable form. This is extremely up. But why should he care? Their flag doesn't say death to fucking Turks. It says curse upon the Jews. Hassan likes to obfuscate on this and says nobody cares when Sean Penn interviewed El Chapo.
Sean Penn literally interviewed El Chapo. Exactly, dude.
Nobody is saying you can't have difficult conversations with controversial people. You just have to ask them hard questions, guys. We know this. Now let's move on to everybody's favorite organization, our friends in the north. It's Hezbollah. Where do I even begin? Thousands of civilians have been killed globally from their terrorist acts, car bombs, and suicide attacks. They even assassinated the Lebanese prime minister. They've hijacked civilian airplanes. They've shot 15,000 rockets into civilian centers. And if you can imagine, that's not even the worst things they've done. They participated in the slaughter of over 500,000 Syrian civilians.
So yeah, he's saying they participated in the slaughter of over 500,000 Syrian civilians. I guess it's different from like saying they killed all of them. But yeah, they fought in the civil war. I mean, if we're going to talk about people participating in the slaughter, you can also say that Israel has participated in the slaughter of Syrian civilians since they've been bombing Syria.
To help a dictator, Bashar Assad, stay in power. They indiscriminately bombed over civilian centers, and they killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in what can only be described as a genocide. They are.
Yeah, that's like not true. So we can take a look at, no, it's Hezbollah. Hezbollah, Syrian war. Hezbollah involvement in the Syrian civil war. Because I think it was like about 500,000 Syrians died in total during the Syrian civil war. And obviously like Hezbollah has been a part of that, but you can't say that they've killed hundreds of thousands themselves. Timeline of Hezbollah's deployment analysis. All right, let's see what the analysis is. National interest and other Western analysis noted the role of Hezbollah in turning the tides of the Syrian civil war in favor of the government. After the organization's role in Qasr, Homs, and Aleppo, the armed wing of the Lebanese party gained political and military experience fighting in urban environments and enlarged its alliance with Syria and Iran. Hezbollah's role has been critical in defeating Syrian rebels on behalf of the Syrian government and has grown stronger in the region. Hezbollah fatalities. Criticism. Support in Lebanon has suffered a drastic dent, and opposition has also emerged from its Shia base in Lebanon and beyond. How many people did they kill? All right, let's just look this up. How many people did Hezbollah kill in Syria? Casualties of the Syrian war. Estimates of the total number of deaths in the Syrian civil war by various war monitors range between 580,000 as of May 2021 and approximately 656,493 as of March 2025. In late September 2021, the UN stated it had documented deaths of at least 350,209 identified individuals, but cautioned the figure was certainly an undercount that specified only a minimum verifiable number. The most violent year of the conflict was 2014, when around 110,000 people were killed. UN envoy to Syria, Stefan de Mistura, stated that more than 400,000 people were killed in the Syrian civil war, By mid-March 2025, opposition activist group the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported the number of children killed in conflict had risen to 26,000 and that 16,181 women had also been killed. On June 28, 2022, the UN Human Rights Office stated that at least 306,000 Syrian civilians had been killed. Overall death tolls by time periods. And when did Hezbollah get involved in the civil war? It has been substantial since the beginning of armed insurgency phase and evolved. So 2011, I guess, which is when it started. The following breakdowns of combatant fatalities does not include 36,000 pro-government and 25,955 anti-government fighters. Death tolls by provinces. Homs. They said that Hezbollah really started fighting in Homs, Aleppo, and what was the other city that they said they fought in? Qusayr, Homs, and Aleppo. After the organization's role in Qusayr, Homs, and Aleppo, the armed wing, they gained political and military experience. There's not really any claims that there's not really any evidence that Hezbollah has personally killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. Okay, so this is the causes. Syrian government forces and allied militias, 157,000 explosions, Islamic State, unknown circumstances, international coalition forces, opposition factions, Turkish forces, prohibited weapons, jihadists, perpetrator. Okay, so I guess would they be under? It must be the allied militias. So the Syrian government and its allied militias killed 157,000. Which once again is not the same thing as saying that Hezbollah killed hundreds of thousands of people and did in Syria. Okay, so let's just take a look at the government forces. Syrian, Lebanese, Hezbollah, fatality. Wait, this is the combatant deaths, civilian deaths. Syrian government forces, number of civilians killed 200,000. Syrian Network for Human Rights has stated it had documented 231,108 civilian deaths and 14 million displaced between March 2011 and August 2025. So this is the Syrian Network for Human Rights, 200,000 by the Syrian government forces, which, yeah, that's fucking horrible. But once again, we're splitting hairs here, and you can definitely say that Hezbollah did a fucking atrocious part in the Syrian civil war. It did some horrible acts in the Syrian civil war, and it lost a lot of support in Lebanon as a result. But what you can't say conclusively is that they killed hundreds of thousands of people in Syria and did a genocide. And if you criticize Ethan for saying that, that's a valid criticism. That's just straight up misinformation. Ethan spreads overt misinformation, just straight up lies about Hezbollah and Ansar Allah in order to delegitimize their struggle against Israel's genocide. He cites baseless claims from Saudi state propaganda outlets to attack the Houthis. He also cites a documentary from Ansar Allah, which he uses as proof of the claim that they brought back slavery when the documentary wasn't even about the Houthis. Okay, so we found an example of Ethan Klein lying about Hezbollah, and now Noah Samsen also gave an example of how he lied about the Houthis. So how is this defamatory? Once again, I go back to, you need to lie about someone for it to be defamatory, right? Okay, let's continue. So you never addressed, let alone refuted, the assertions made in the nuke that Hezbollah engaged in terrorism, resulting in the deaths of thousands of civilians. Hezbollah orchestrated the assassination of Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik el-Hariri. Hezbollah hijacked airplanes. Hezbollah fired 15,000 rockets in civilian areas. Hezbollah intervened in the civil war to aid the dictator Bashar al-Assad, which resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians. Hezbollah's leader, come on, you're being a little generous in you clipping the bad stuff out of this, right? Ethan Klein didn't stop there. He said that they personally killed hundreds of thousands, which was a genocide in Syria. He said that Hezbollah genocided the Syrian population.
You can imagine, that's not even the worst things they've done. They participated in the slaughter of over 500,000.
Once again, all of the escalating conflict with Hezbollah in Syria. He includes an article headline, I think Wikipedia, I guess. All of the following deaths, overall deaths, all of the following totals include civilians, rebels, and government forces. So once again, this is civilians and then combatants on both sides. And Ethan Klein throws that up there, and he says that Hezbollah personally killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Syrian civilians to help a dictator in the slaughter of over 500,000 Syrian civilians.
What is this GCR2P? GCR2P. The responsibility to protect is a global political commitment. So these are the civilians? What is GCR2P? All right, let's just look up this article that Ethan was using. The escalating conflict with Hezbollah in Syria. The escalating conflict with Hezbollah in Syria. This is it? Is there that GCRK? Does that article not exist? The escalating conflict with Hezbollah in Syria. Is it in the Hezbollah's participation in Syria? Let's just look this up. GCR2. Oh, I can't find it. The complete opposite. It's the type of stuff you use to make fun of. Yeah, I don't know what this is, what this video is talking about. Overall deaths. All of the following totals include civilians, rebels, and government forces. Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. So these are the totals and these are the sources. GCR2P source. GCR2P. Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect. So this is the source that counted it up. So Ethan Klein is saying that over 500,000 civilians were killed, when literally the article he's citing is saying that that the totals include civilians and combatants on both sides. So like this is it's like a pretty open and shut example of Ethan lying. But guys, consider signing up for memberships. It helps me out, helps my editors out. Only $1 a month, so it's really not a big deal. Your name can be green. That will be cool. And thanks for watching, everyone.